Yes.
Good, yeah.
It's good to see you. How are we this morning? How was your journey coming in?
Well, pleasure seeing you as well. Looking so beautiful and cute as behind the console.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My first time of coming here, and I'm highly impressed, actually.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
In the studio for you. I'm in the studio.
Yes.
Not the network.
It's fairly new.
That's right.
We're very proud of our studio, and we're looking forward to having an impactful conversation with you. Now, of course, yesterday was all about money. You and I, our money. We were waiting, anticipating what the Honorable Finance Minister, had in store for us. Your initial reactions to the mid-year budget?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And let me take this opportunity again to say good morning to your cherished listeners. To start with, I was highly elated yesterday when I heard the news. But as a veteran in this game of politics, I asked myself, why should I equally be elated? Why should I be happy? Because years back, we heard these things over and over with high hopes. Since the inception of political parties in 1992, every time budget is read, the hopes of the people gets high. But at the end of the journey, we come to appreciate the fact that our anticipations or our hopes were probably not met as we all expected. I tried to diagnose as to why these things happen. And I had an answer. The answer being that when we talk of a budget, people assume that a budget is a sort of money to be spent, okay? But a budget is just a measure of trying to raise funding from a sector to do a particular project. No one should think or assume that the money being mentioned here is there in the kitty. It's not. Their budget is just a projection to undertake a project. So if that is the case, there's a possibility that the government, or for that matter, at that fiscal year, it can be achieved or not. Let me reiterate that no one should assume that all this money mentioned is in the kitty of the Bank of Ghana. No, it's not. We are now trying to find ways and means of raising those funds to support the laudable ideas that have been put in place, unless otherwise stated. Besides that, I will once again doff my hat up for the minister, the presidency, and for that matter, the party in power. It's a laudable idea. I'm hoping this can be achieved. If these are achieved, then Ghanaians would really have the need to retain this government over and over. Anything short of this will begin to linger in the minds of the people. That's what is happening. Let me give you a retrospective analysis.
Right.
I recall in 1992, when Rawlings took over the mantle of leadership. He was the head of state from the military administration. Then there was an election, and he won and became a president. His first finance minister, if my memory serves me right, was Kwesi Botwe. Kwesi Botwe, a very proactive personality. If Kwesi Botwe reads the budget, at the end of the day, we all applaud and clap for him and say, wow, Ghana is on cloud 9. He brought in very laudable policies like the PAMS card, what have you, program of action to mitigate the cost of, when you hear the English, you applaud it. But then, somewhere along the line, at the end of the year, they will come to appreciate the fact that they couldn't meet their targets. Hence, those projects could not be undertaken. Fast track, Rawlings 1, Rawlings 2. Then came 2000 election, when Kufuor was sworn into office in 2001. When we were expected to see a stable economy, as projected by the previous administration, we were told by the then finance minister, Honorable Asaf Mafu, that the economy was in shambles. When Kufuor took over the mantle of leadership, it was in shambles. So the MPP need to streamline their economic performance to put the country on its toes. So I begin to ask myself, were they telling us lies? Or these people are just opposing something against the wishes of the people? Lo and behold, Ghana was taken to HIPIC.
That's right.
You recall? Why did we go to HIPIC? Because the perception about Ghana being on cloud 9 under the ex-NDC Rawlings administration turned out to be a hoax, probably, in quotes. So we were compelled by circumstance to go into HIPIC and declared ourselves as one of the highly indebted nations in the world. which was the total derogatory. But then we had no option than to accept it in good faith. Then we started the economic recovery in that regime. We came a long way, only to lose power again, and then the NDC under Professor Mills took over the mantle of leadership. The same story re-echoed under Professor Mills. Finance Minister is telling us that the government has a whole lot of jargons that we were told. So, my dear, it's a very incisive statement to hear the ministers speaking this way. Very laudable idea. I love it. But if I sometimes see it as just rhetorics on paper.
Right.
It works real in the paper, very written. But the application of these things are my cardinal questions. When you listen to what the minister said, all night I was reading the budget, and I said, wow, can we achieve this target? People's hopes and aspirations are high, more especially when we see the huge figures. The district assemblies, 4.9 billion for the district assemblies. Wow, that's marvelous.
That's right.
Education, energy sector, billions of cities. If we have these monies there, where are we paying the 1 cedi levy on fuel? A liter per fuel. These are the projections I was talking about. These monies, they are not there. I hope you getting understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody should be deceived in thinking that those monies are there. Then aren't. But if the government put prudent measures in place, I think we can meet a target. What I will appeal to government of the day, probably from a little experience or in financing, is to make sure that the errors of the ex-administration. Look, let me be frank with you here, my dear. Let me be very frank. The e-levy to me was one of the best policies.
The electronic transfer levy.
To me. Do you know why?
Why is that?
It covers a wider spectrum of people in the society. But the difficulty I had with it had to do with the policy of accountability. People paid, okay? People paid. Well, it might sound strange to you. People paid. If the monies were prudently used, you would have applauded it. But as to how much was accrued out of that lump sum, you and I do not know. Nobody told us whether it was consolidated, put into a consolidated fund or whatever. Let me draw attention to something. Do you know we have a fund for our energy fund and energy?
Indeed.
The oil fund. The oil fund. You know that?
Indeed.
Have you ever heard there's any problem with that sector before? That somebody has taken money from the oil fund? The what do you call it? The oil that was discovered. You know, we are into oil production.
Indeed.
It is so because those monies go into a particular fund called the Heritage Fund under PIAC. So the monies are monitored and controlled. It's very difficult to tamper with those money. If these monies were coming into the consolidated fund, believe me, you wouldn't see a dime.
It would go to so many other.
Absolutely. I hope you get the logic I'm drawing.
Indeed.
So invariably, if the e-levy, a fund had been set up for e-levy, that every person goes to where it is expected to be, yeah, we could have been counting billions.
But Mr. Santa, quick note on the e-levy. The projections that were made, and I don't have those figures offhand, we know that the actual monies that were realized fell short because I think at its inception, the buy-in was very low because you also situated at a time when I think the Ghanaian populace had lost faith with the ruling government at that time. The precedents had been said that whatever monies we're paying are simply not being channeled in the right direction. So the confidence was very low.
I think you agree with what I'm saying. In other way, you are agreeing with what I'm saying. Exactly what I'm saying is what we projected.
Right.
If the money is collected, we're channeled into the right gauge, we would have been saying this. People got pissed off with the, as you said, people were beginning to get pissed off with the government of the day. You recall it was just 1.5% or so along the line. Then they reviewed it and widened the gap. Initially, there was a threshold.
That's right.
If you recall.
That's right.
There was a threshold now. And they were not meeting the target. But as to what target was set and how much was accrued into the target grade is what you and I did not know. So naturally, people will begin to ask questions. We are paying monies, and we don't know how much money we are paying and what it's being used for. That is why I'm just opposing it to the system. The 1 cedi levy on the energy, on the fuel, okay? If it is not well managed, we'll hit the rock like the e-levy hit.
Right.
I will propose to the presidency, or for that and the finance ministry, that they make sure that a particular account.
We're told that's the mechanism in place, and we're yet to see that materialize. We're told that it's going to be going to a ring-fenced, shall I say, pot.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
And that's what I suppose the people of Ghana will be looking at, and we, of course, are following keenly.
Yeah.
We're hoping that we get even quarterly updates because, for me, and I've parroted this, the inefficiencies that we're told about in the energy sector are due to a myriad of reasons. But time after time, it appears that it's the Ghanaian that bears the brunt of these inefficiencies. We hear about power losses, power theft, and even procurement issues. I mean, so many other issues. And so having to pay extra tax when you know that there are issues to be dealt with, as a Ghanaian, can really sometimes get your back up because you want those inefficiencies to be fixed so that we can enjoy lower fuel costs, which we were enjoying at the start of the year. But government says, well, we've got to pay our legacy debts and we've got to pay for the fuel. So we follow along in that journey and we widen our eyes to see really how those monies will be used. But Mr. Asante, thank you for that preamble and also taking us back through successive finance ministers. From what I also gather from that preamble is that when you listen to our finance ministers, past and present, speak, it's almost like this analogy I'm going to use, putting a plaster on a gunshot wound. Some of the issues are very deep, very systemic, but we find maybe some surface level remedies for those issues. So fantastic preamble. I think we've all learned something, at least taking us back in time, that this is nothing new, especially in the early stages of every government where the goodwill seems to be quite high. We're all riding on a high. Then subsequently, things start to change. I want us to quickly also take a look at some key highlights from the media budget reading. We'll put it up on the screen. For those of you watching, you can also follow along. And you talked about some monies that have been are yet to be spent. Okay, so key investments in essential services. All right, so you have some 2.9 billion to the District Assembly Common Fund, some 2.7 billion Ghana cedis to SSNIT to safeguard pensions, some 9.1 billion to the energy sector to ensure stable electricity supply, and 5 billion Ghana cedis will need to clear outstanding debts. Kunzo, remind me, these are monies that are to be paid. These are monies have been spent. Okay, so there's been that critique. Government isn't spending. Honorable Atuforsen says they have been spending in the right direction. So I'm reading out what has been spent. All right. 4.6 billion Ghana cedis to the Ghana Education Trust Fund, GET Fund. Impactful spending, he calls it. Some 1 billion Ghana cedis to sustain free secondary education. Free SHS is still ongoing. That hasn't collapsed. 4.6 billion to the National Health Insurance Scheme. Some 1.4 billion Ghana cedis to clear NHIS claims. Some 252 million Ghana cedis, we're told, spent on vaccines and essential medicines. Some 72.8 million Ghana cedis on the capitation grant. Okay, there's some more coming in. Okay, 895 million Ghana cedis to keep the school feeding program running. You know that the school feeding program amounts have been increased, marginally, but increased. Some 477 million Ghana cedis paid to LEAP beneficiaries. Some 300 million Ghana cedis to the no-fee stress policy. Some 122.8 million Ghana cedis for BECE registration. And a combined 654 million to support teacher and nursing trainees. I know for that one, a lot of you have your own critique on that. We'll park that for today. For those who have saying it should be scrapped, that's how much money we could be saving as a nation. Let's carry on. 25 million Ghana cedis has been paid in assembly members' allowances. Some 21 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Some 34.5 million cedis to support the Ejumara Program, a jobs and enterprise initiative. Also, 2 billion Ghana cedis has been paid to ensure government MMDs function effectively. And you have 2 billion cedis used to rescue the struggling National Investment Bank, NIB. Non-interest expenditure amounted to some 84.2 billion cedis, and total payments from the consolidated fund in the first half 114.5 billion Ghana cedis spent. You've got a sectoral breakdown of that. Let's pause that very quickly. Let me get the thoughts of Mr. Asante on that. A lot had been said that this government is not spending, simply not spending, and that's why we're seeing the macroeconomic indicators looking so sweet. But from yesterday's budget reading, we see that some spending, of course, has happened. How do you situate what you heard against some of the views that were, floating about?
It's quite interesting. I will be surprised and wonder as to how members of parliament would have made such a comment, because the role of parliamentarians is to safeguard the interests of the masses in these areas. How can a government do this projection, make this payment, and a member of parliament would tell me they were not privy to it? Naturally, then there's a gap within the ranks, or it's just a mischievous act to deceive the masses. Otherwise, nothing goes out without parliamentary notification. That is how you have ranking members on each of these committees. So when I heard the opposition make such comment, I was asking myself, is it real? Have we been told the fact? If anyone doubts this, it's very easy to cross-check. To cross-check these figures, you and I can probably easily cross-check. So I will not hinder much on the issues raised by the opposition, because it might be a bit mischievous for me to probably buy into that. Yes, it could be true that contractors and other sectors of the economy have not been paid, which is very normal. No government can settle all its debts at a go. Naturally, there will be transference of debts from one government to the other, because if you complete a project, it takes time for government to pay you, some as far as 6 months interval, between 3 and 6 months. So if you lose the election, that debt will be transferred onto the next coming or the incoming administration, which is very normal. What we just witnessed, you know what fascinates me much?
What is it?
The area of the fee, what do you call it?
No fee stress.
Believe you me, that is my interest. One may wonder, ask why all these bulletins. I was a product of free education university. In those years, I was able to go to secondary school because it was free. I had a scholarship. In those days, we called the government scholarship.
Okay.
It was not like it is today. The very good students gained scholarship from the government of Ghana scholarship, and the poor but needy got theirs from what we call this Kuku board, Kuku scholarship. So a lot of us were privileged, else we could have gone to school. So naturally, this is just an improvement over those areas. Just that this one has been widened to cover all spectrum of students. When you get after Form 5, then we go to Sixth Form. Sixth Form was virtually free. We had what we call the bursary, government bursary. So anybody in Sixth Form was not paying a fee. Okay, it's a bursary. You need to qualify, and then you move on. You get to university, virtually, it was free in these years back. But then dynamics changed. And the policy of, remember there was disturbance on campus, when the introduction of what the supporting fees had to be paid, and a whole lot of jargon. That led to the closure of the university for 1 year. That culminated in what we do call the national service today after university.
Right.
Hitherto, it wasn't like that. It was a continuous process. Legon was closed for a year. And that gave the gap. And the world nearly rejected Ghana. Our education was coming to nothing, because you can't waste the life of a student for 1 year without educational policy. So we were nearly written off. The best option of the day, I think it was under Rawlings or so, in the 90s. I think earlier in the 90s, it was under Rawlings. That the policy of the national service came in to fill that 1 year gap. You see that dichotomy, you see the wisdom there. Fast track. I'm saying this stress-free because, my dear, the most difficult line in tertiary education is the first year. Will you agree with me?
I don't have that personal experience, so it would be difficult. But from what I have observed in the commentary of in fact the students, that seems to be the consensus, that the first year, not being able to mobilize your funds in the first year can mean that some students will not actually get into that tertiary education.
Come again, I don't get it.
If you don't mobilize funds, if you're not able to at least secure your first year funding, I mean, it could be difficult. You put your education on hold. You won't enter.
You are done. Because It's highly competitive. And the first year is the most stressful. That's why the name is stress-free. It's not for nothing that name was chosen. First of all, you need to look for an accommodation if you are from afar, because the accommodation there can accommodate only little people.
That's right.
And now it's been left in the hands of the private sector. And you and I know the aim of and objective of every businessman is to maximize profit.
Indeed.
It's not about you. It's about his interest. Then you need to look for, besides accommodation, if for nothing, you need to look for laptop.
That's right.
You need to pay for your fees. On the average, you will need not less than 20,000 Ghana cedis as a starter to enter university.
That to cater at least for your first year.
First year, exactly. You have to pay your fees, depending on the subject you are offering. If you are into engineering, medicine, and you need much more. If you are into humanities, probably you may be a bit fortunate. If you are not lucky to get accommodation on campus, which is very limited, you need to struggle for. Then you need to look for your own accommodation within or around campus, wherever you are. Good. That's the first cardinal principle. Number 2, you need to get your learning material, at least a laptop, to aid your study.
That's right.
You need a phone to aid your service. Good. All said and done, assuming you are not living on campus, your transportation to and fro to lectures, even within campus, probably might be very difficult for you. So if government has taken this burden off you, the first year student, and you are lucky to enter into university by every means necessary, you count yourself a blessing and thank the government for such a laudable policy. Why? Because, as I stated in earlier submission, if you're able to make the first year, my dear, believe in me, you can defer your course at any given time, because you have the first year entry, okay? An undergraduate, you have the first year entry, and things are not going as well as you like, you can defer your programs and then come at any time and then continue. But if you never had the chance of entering the first year, you see the difficulty you go through?
That's right. At least if you clear that hurdle, your prospects increase significantly. But Mr. Santi, do you worry about sustainability of a policy such as this? And I'm juxtaposing that against free SHS, for example. And we know that at some point, the financing of the free SHS model had become quite tough, given the rest of the economic climate. Does this give you cause for concern?
Let me counter ask you a question. I'm sorry for this. Where from the money for the free HS? Where do we get it? Where did the government get that money from?
We asked former president, and I'm not sure if we got the exact answer.
Yeah, let me help you for the answer.
Indeed.
I recall in 2017 when President Nana Akufo-Addo was the president, and his first year, he introduced the free SHS program. That was in September when we were going to school. So I asked myself, they said this country was poor. We don't have even the means to do that. But so where from this money? Then I did a research and realized that, you see, I said something here about the oil fund. When that oil was found under Kufuor, people were asking, what do we do with the money? And some suggested that they should be in the consolidated fund. Okay? Lo and behold, when the NDC came to power, within the concept of, I think, 2009 under President Mills, they decided to create what they call the Heritage Fund. Okay, so the Heritage Fund was set up and all the money accrued from the oil field were deposited there. What was the aim? The aim was to look for the future generation to make sure. Then came the Nana Akufo-Addo administration with same money. He said, no, the youth, the future, the growth up of the future are the youth of today. So let's channel that money into their education. Hence the need for the free education. That's why he was able to do it in the first year of his administration. So it's a channel from the linkage from the oil fund that is catapulting this. Luckily enough, after that, there have been improvement in the oil production. Because that account is monitored, deeply monitored, the government can lay hold on it and say, we are going to do what we are talking about. Because besides all the challenges of the free education, this government has come and said, we are widening it up. In the 2020 election, before 2020, the NDC was advocating that, look, let us do it what we call a systematic improvement, for lack of a better word. They had a way for it. that we shouldn't just cook it into one sector. No, let us put the measures in place. We need accommodation. They use a word for it, free. What's the word? Sometimes I'm gradual, sometimes I'm forgetting the word they were using, so that we can have the full benefit of the policy. But then the NPP thought otherwise. Wholesale sales, and the challenges began to emanate.
Indeed.
You see, so those were some of the things I think they have sat down, look into the crystal balls, and said, look, we did this and we could. But let me be sincere with you. I live in a Shoreman estate. Now, when you get to Atomic, the runabout, there's a secondary school, one of the E blocks. I did a research there, and I had a shock of my life that we should be very careful. This school started with about 1,500 students. And they said 1,500 students. It's a day school, community day school. As I'm talking to you today, as at last admission, my research showed there were more than 5,000 students in that school today with the same facilities.
From 1,005 to 5,000.
As I'm talking to you today. They're day student. Just at Atomic Roundabout, you call it Kwabenya SHS. It's there. And I ask myself, do we have foresight? Kwame Nkrumah left that land for Atomic Energy Commission. Today, go there. Encroachment. The school has been entangled. I'm afraid within the next 5-10 years, people cannot, because they can't expand the school. All behind, both from left, right, and center, have been encroached by churches and name them. So, ask me, do we have foresight? Do we reason? Why do we have to treat ourselves to these menaces? So, probably we are just building our grave grounds. Otherwise, if education is our priority, we must make sure that we have wider scope for it. But all said and done, I will not belittle the effort the government have made.
Right.
It's a very laudable one. Let's praise it. Let's call a spade a spade. I hope and pray that at the end of the day, the good people of Ghana will see the benefits of all this. But as it is now, before I veer into the dollarization or what have you, let me just give a space to someone else to make a point.
Absolutely. Mr. Asante, thank you so much for those points. And I'm very keen to also explore further this issue of dollarization because at some point enough has to be enough. But let me say good morning and a very warm welcome to Mr. Fred Kwashi Awuti, tax lawyer. And he's in the studio with us this morning. It's a post-mortem of the mid-year budget review. Fred, hello, good morning. Hope you're well.
Yeah, good morning. Very well.
Thank you for joining us on the program. And get the microphone a bit closer to you, if possible. Yes, it's quite flexible. There we go. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Let me ask my first question. And I typically started off this way. Your preliminary thoughts on yesterday's mid-year budget review. Just a quick summary for us.
All right, thank you very much. If the budget as read by the finance minister yesterday, just it's a reflection of what the economic direction is and what we are expecting it to be. Just it give us an account on the state of the economy as it is, particularly relating to the inflation and exchange rate and revenue collection, the total economic, how things are, which is, quite very good. So it's much reflective for us to hear that things are going very well. And at this end, it gives us an assurance that in the near future or in a very short term, at least there is some stability within the economy. And then businesses are likely to, actually feeling the good things we have, such that prices of goods and services are not coming down as we expect. However, sellers and meat producers are expecting that, once they see some form of stability, and then things will go very well. But as I said, yes, it's very reflection for us to have this the budget read yesterday.
Fantastic, Fred. I'll come back to you very shortly because I want us to get into the nitty-gritty as far as some of the tax policy measures are concerned. We'll have a discussion on that. But Mr. Santa, I wanted you to weigh in quickly on yesterday, the minorities' boycott of the proceedings. How did you assess that conduct by the minority? They say they had, important matters to discuss with the president. They found their way at the car park of Jubilee House to present their petition. In fact, we have their key demands on the screen. You can take a look at that if you're following us on Facebook. What were your thoughts on the boycott?
Yeah, one of the cardinal principles of democracy was displayed yesterday by the minority. Why do I say so? the concept of democracy gives room for what he did. All right? Thankfully, the majority had the say. And the Constitution has permitted them that, despite the numbers out, deliberation could have gone on. And it went on.
That's right.
Stopping them probably would have been a disservice to the country, and nobody could have stopped them. That is a democratic right, and they've expressed it. In their estimation, they think the demands for Ablekuma, by-election, brouhaha, was more important than the reading of the media review of the budget. Again, if that is the concept, fine. They're entitled to that opinion. Thankfully, as I said earlier, it couldn't stop the duty of Parliament, as the Speaker rightly pointed out, and it went on. So I will not begrudge them. They have the right to do what they did. You can walk out of Parliament if you're not interested in the issues to be discussed. But that does not negate what took place.
Right.
And that does not also warrant that your demands should be the key principles before the good people of this country. Yes, Galamsey is a menace. We all agree. But if the government was doing practically nothing about it, that is where we have a cause to complain. Personally, I have my beef about it because the assurances given by the administration in opposition seem to be dwindling with the realities of the day. The fight against the Galamsey is one of the most arduous and Herculean tasks before any government.
It's a very complex issue.
More than complex. From behind, we see it as trivial. I hear people talking about using brute force.
We've had shoot to kill.
That doesn't make logical sense. When I hear people talking that way, I say, wow, do they really know what they're talking about? Shoot to kill? Kill who? Whether you like it or not, it has come to stay with us. You go to South Africa, is there? You know they have Galamsey in South Africa? They call it Zanzama or whatever they call it.
That's right, Zanzama.
Yeah, absolutely, I know that. I know South Africa. But they have streamlined the policy in such a way that it is not as wayward as ours are. Nobody is saying Galamsey, or for that matter, the concept of small-scale mining shouldn't be. It should be, but the regulatory body should make that the regulation is followed to the latter. If the regulations are followed, I don't think this Hulubalu would have it wouldn't. But because we have left it in the hands of few who are only earning whatever it is.
Yeah.
I heard the boss of the what's the name? Gold Board.
Sammy Jemfi.
Outlining the amount of money that has been gotten from that sector. Very huge. It's 7.1 billion, some billions of dollars. I shook my head. Millions of dollars. Is it millions or in billions? I've forgotten the exact figure. So I ask myself, where are they getting the money from? Is it from the same small-scale miners? Something that you and I term as an illegal concept that are not regulated. And from those people, we are purchasing this gold and making money, and we are priding ourselves with those monies. So, how do you just suppose the two? Does it mean we should leave them to go on with their Galamsey, or we must stop them? I think stopping Galamsey will be one of the most arduous tasks.
I like how you phrase it. You said that now this government is confronted, the efforts seem to be dwindling with the realities on the ground.
Absolutely, yeah.
From where we sit, like you say, it seems quite simple. People are saying, oh, take the soldiers into the pits and let them, fire away. But this is a different kettle of fish. And I hope at a separate time we can really get into the issues of Galamsey because it's a big issue that has many, many, many facets. All right, thank you, Mr. Asante. Let me re-engage Fred on this. Let's talk tax policies. And Fred, do the new policy adjustments demonstrate fairness, from where you sit, or do they disproportionately burden specific groups? What we heard yesterday.
Okay, thank you. If you look at the tax policy issues contained in the budget, as you know, it's just a mid-year budget, and the minister just performed the statutory duty of reading it to us and giving us an account on what has happened over the past 6 months. Now, what are the key tax policy that they put in there? They intend to actually reform the budget, the value-added tax, the levies, and then others, which is quite good. But if you look at the budget, you see that revenue isn't performing the way it should perform. That sends a very wrong signal that if you don't take time and pragmatic step is not taken, then it means that certain aspect of the economy will be in trouble. And while we expect it, because if you look at the budget estimated tax revenue that should be collected for the year, you will notice that compared to the previous year, particularly in 2024, we expect that given the level of inflation now is about 13% thereabout, we expect that revenue should be collected, estimated revenue should be about 220 billion, but minister projected around 200 billion. That means that there's a gap in terms of estimation of the revenue. So effectively, it's likely that government have to push in more in order to collect a lot of money. But if you look at recently, not too long ago, government has introduced a new tax, like that is the energy sector levy, 1 Ghana cedis on fuel. It means that those who are paying taxes will still suffer that. And not only that, though once you take a transport cost is likely to go high. However, we've not seen a spike on transport costs. That would mean that if you're a private driver, a private car owner, you still have to pay that tax. I mean, the tax, so that will have effect on individual group of people who actually, maybe you and I, who drive a car to the filling station and buy fuel, will be affected. But the person who may not be affected so much is maybe those who take the commercial transport and then go
until of course the drivers decide that, well, we're going to increase, and exactly. Something tells me, I can almost smell it in the air, that it's going to be happening, especially if we see in the next pricing window fuel prices going up. At the time of the introduction of this 1 cedi per litre of fuel, we saw the driver associations actually rear their heads, and they were up in arms because very recently they'd been asked to reduce their fares by some 15%, only to turn around the next morning and found out that around 10 p.m., 11 p.m., that bill had been passed to add on to the costs.
Yes, so that is the challenge we have with, particularly not only with this government, but even the previous government. You see, there are principles of taxation. One key principle of taxation is certainty and equity. Now, if prices of goods and services are stable, and then you have convinced me based on the stability of the cedi, the inflation dropping, and other prices are coming down, for me to reduce my price, then you turn around to increase the tax. It doesn't bring certain level of certainty within the tax administration. And in that case, it brings some sort of mistrust between government and then the stakeholders. So I think government over the years must learn some lesson, because trust in terms of tax revenue administration is very important. It brings some sort of equity, and persons, people who are affected by the tax will have to go and pay, will be willing to pay. Then also we should be aware that, you see, increasing taxes is always not the way to go. We don't just increase tax. We have relevant provisions in the tax laws that, when effectively implemented, you don't really need to actually increase any other taxes. The only thing you just have to do is that try as much as possible to stop the gaps, the loopholes within the tax law and the tax administration. In that case, the revenue that you should have collected, you will collect it. I keep saying that when you go to a place like Chado, there are a lot of buildings which are coming up there. You walk on the street, we see a lot of people driving new cars and then big time car. The question is that, what is their tax returns? Because your tax return must correspond with the wealth you have. If you take your tax return and you realize that you pay only 800,000 Ghana cedis, but you can buy a car or build a house which is about 7 million Ghana cedis. Remember, personal income tax is up to 35%. Once you're paying up to 35%, it means that you're in high net worth bracket. So 35% of, let's say, 10 billion, and you're paying 100 Ghana cedis, 100,000 a year. That tells you that you're underpaying. There's something which is wrong. So if you can rope in these people who are actually wealthy enough to pay the tax, you don't need to really increase any tax. Let me also give you another instance.
Right.
Have you wondered, the Facebook you're using pay tax in Ghana, but you pay money to them. They generate money from here. X.
That's
They
right.
generate money from here through adverts and all this. We advertise on Facebook. We pay money to them. Have you wondered if that they pay income tax? But you and I who work in Ghana here, I mean, by the time the month ends, you're paying the tax. Why don't we look at these areas which are not taxed? Do you get it? And rather than trying to impose, would Facebook pay the 1 Ghana cedi fuel? No, they will not, because they don't do transportation on the road. But you and I will have to pay such a tax. Meanwhile, this guy is making money and he's not being taxed. Do you get it? So that's why we're saying that why don't you effectively implement, or even if there's a need to bring the tax law and close the gaps within the tax law to tax the digital taxation, digital transaction, that would be fantastic.
So, Fred, how do you assess our current compliance environment? If you could give it a score out of 10.
I would say that compliance is gradually progressing. Compliance is, sometimes it depends on how the revenue administration, approach its compliance issues. I'm trying to get the people to comply. But if you look at the tax revenue compared to that of, the people who are paying tax, the last count we have is about 3 million people who are paying tax. Is it 3 million people who are paying tax? They are a tax population. But if you look at the number of houses we have, over 7 million houses we have, compare 3 million to 7 million. That tells you just about 40% of compliance level that we have. If you want to use that yardstick to actually determine. So there is no specific percentage that we can say that compliance level is low. But however, to the extent that there are potential to pay tax, and then those who are paying are far less than those who are not supposed to pay, then we are far below 50%.
So the trick really is to strengthen the compliance environment, also take advantage of what we call low-hanging fruits. You talk about these houses. I'll show them. I know a specific area that can realize a lot of money. Just get in touch with me. Not too far from here. I can point you in the right direction. And time after time, I know tax experts like yourself will say, there's a lot of low-hanging fruits, but we don't take advantage. And instead, governments past and present will say, let's increase how much taxes we're taking. That is not the solution, you say.
That's not the solution. Solution is not to increase tax. No country developed on the basis of increment of taxes. Look, in the 1960s, tax rates are around 50% in European countries, but it is gradually coming down. And average tax in the European countries is about 25%. That is it. But in Ghana, what do we see? Our corporate tax rate is about 35%. Personal income tax rate is about 35% higher. That is quite huge. And in fact, it was 25%. The higher marginal rate was 25%. It was increased to 30%, and then increased to another 35%. So it means that gradually it's going up. But who are paying? It's only the same people who are actually paying the tax. And government feel like, well, these are the people we can get, because it is easy to collect those taxes. It is easy to collect what we call indirect taxes, like taxes on levy, on fuel, import, duty kind of things. But the level of compliance can only be demonstrated in respect of income tax. So when we say that tax is not doing very well, the most important thing we look at is that the income tax. The tax you pay on your income you earn. But taxes you pay on consumptions is very easy to collect. So we don't have a problem with that. For example, you cannot say that you're not going to drive. So long as you hit the road, you have to buy fuel. You're going to pay the fuel taxes. But when you hit the road and when you're working, your employer will definitely take your employment income tax. That is another low-hanging fruit you're talking about. But those who earn the income, how do we get them to voluntarily file their returns and then pay the taxes?
Now we talk about the informal sector as well, how huge that is, and what measures government has in place to ensure that we are all paying taxes.
Great. The informal sector. We have provisions in the tax law which deal with what we call modifier-based taxation. And I keep saying that this modifier-based taxation provisions has been there since 2015. And we have never taken the steps to actually implement these types of tax. If you look at a country like India, I would normally use this country as an example. When they introduce the modifier-based taxation, in this case, they call it presumptive tax, and we have the same thing in our tax law. This presumptive tax is intended to cover the informal sector. For example, if they ask you to go and file your returns, you have to indicate how much revenue you're earning, the expenses you're earning, then you try as much as possible to track all the expenses and take it out from your profit is all your net income is what is taxed.
That's right.
But we have record keeping challenges. So modifier-based taxation is to estimate the tax and look at the revenue, and then a small margin of tax rate is applied to it. The tax law talks about 3%. Now, the presumptive tax is supposed to cover the informal sector, so that once the earns income less than 200,000, then we can just pay 3% of that. The question is that how do we get the informal sector? But the question is that how do we then first define what constitutes the informal sector? So if you look at the tax law did not say informal sector. What it says that if your income is 200,000 and below, then pay what is called a marginal tax. Don't go and prepare your account, look for accountant to prepare account for you, get a tax consultant to help you on how to file your returns. No, only just get your revenue, apply 3% on it and pay. But getting people to pay is another problem. One cardinal principle of taxation is traceability, identification of the taxpayer.
That's right.
If you do not identify the taxpayer, that's what the problem is. Because if you don't identify the taxpayer, how do you expect him to come and pay? Though we have in our tax law what we call voluntary self-assessment, voluntary compliance, or self-assessment, but how many people are willing to pay? But one other thing which we normally gloss on and people normally say, and which normally if you go to the foreign countries, the developed country, is about what is government doing for me? If I have a pothole in front of my house, and I'm going to the house and I have to drive through the pothole,
and I can even destroy my car.
Why should I give you money? These are the genuine concerns which people normally have. Then another issue is that government has constructed roads, but we have made to believe that the roads which are constructed are from loans we've taken. So they say we've constructed a road from here to Kumasi, from here to Insao. But the belief is that we have taken loans to build that road, this school, but not knowing that the loans you have taken, you have to use your tax revenue to pay. So effectively, it's a tax which must answer the question. So the road that have been constructed is not the loan money, but it's what? The tax revenue.
That's an interesting perspective to avert one's mind to. But Fred, let me pause you very quickly and introduce into the conversation Dr. Julius Jima, urban economist. Doc, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Helen.
Hope you're doing well.
Yes, I'm fine, thank you. And you? I'm
doing fantastic. We were hoping to see you yesterday, but that's all right. We have you today, and we can have an effective post-mortem. I'm sure you were tuned in every step of the way as the finance minister was getting into the mid-year budget review. In just about a minute, what is your assessment of the entire budget reading?
Yes, Helen. Good morning once again. Good morning to your cherished listeners and then viewers. And good morning to my boss, Fred. It's been a long time.
Brother.
I think yesterday I joined in listening to the finance minister. And then what I can say, or the deductions I made from the presentation, was that I saw a very determined, finance minister who wants to achieve something greater for the country. All the indicators that, usually we report in the budget from, the fiscal performances and then tax measures, expenditure control, as well as macroeconomic indicators, everything pointed to the fact that we are doing well. And, this is what we want to see as our country going forward, that we'll be able to, record a lot of gains for, the entire country. So, so far, so good. I think it's something that we need to support and encourage the success story so that we can sustain it. at the end of the day, just as we say, it's about bread and butter issues.
That's right.
And then the biggest, objective is that we're able to eradicate poverty in our country and bridge the gap between inequality and then inequity. Fred was discussing about high net worth individuals and, people having so much money, but they don't really pay the tax. And even identifying wherever taxpayers are so that they can also contribute their quota into the development of the country. So I think on the surface and then in detail, we could see that we have come from afar, and where we are, we can only continue with the success story that we have as a country.
Certainly, Julius, thank you for that. And given what you heard yesterday, do you think that the budget review presented a credible roadmap to drive economic recovery, especially given current urban unemployment trends?
Yes, I think that looking at how the finance minister came to attack the figures point to itself. We want to have a country that we can prosper. We want to have a country that we can develop, a country that we can take care of our people. Yes, urbanization is really catching up, but most of the problems are also there. We have not been able to eradicate them. We are looking at our transport system, looking at our security issues, building a very, transparent, vibrant, economy, or even urban centers. A lot of people are moving from the rural areas to the urban centers because they just want to have access to decent jobs or even employment opportunities. So with regards to what we heard yesterday from the finance minister, trying to tighten the public purse, cutting down expenditure, not going to borrow, as we have seen in the past, and as a result, increasing our public debt, and, we call for restructuring and all that. It's in the interest that we're able to build buffers and make savings for the country so that we can channel those, savings and gains into creating more jobs, building small, medium enterprises that will be able to employ more of our youth and put them to work. And in doing that, when people are prosperous, making their money in the country, you can tax them. Yes, I agree with the assertion that Fred was making earlier on that, you don't need to increase taxes. There are a lot of provisions in our tax laws that we compliance and enforce people to pay, go after them, look for them, and then pay. Once we're able to do that, then for any increment in taxes. The minister, talked about reforming the entire VAT system or VAT administration that we have in the country, the cascading effect of taxing, tax on tax, and, amounting to some like a double taxation and all that of the same goods and services that businesses are rendering or producing in the country. So it has just set us the tone for us to prosper, for the country to develop. Once you are making the expenditure cuts and then tightening your purse and then making sure that you can get more revenue, mobilize more revenue within the space, looking at your key initiatives or key government programs, you can really have the money to do that. At the end of the day, what is government interest? Government interest is that we are getting that enabling environment, we are getting a peaceful, urban economy, rural urbanization is being mitigated, focus on putting businesses and creating more jobs, whether it is through agriculture, empowering the local people to get access to capital funding, to be able to go into agriculture, and then the business side of agriculture, within our rural areas, we can feed ourselves, grow. You have that appetite and ensure that the youth are put to work. These are the basic things that we are looking at for. Again, we'll come back to infrastructure. Every economy will be heavily dependent on infrastructure. And one of the key things is roads. Roads open up, our country. It opens up rural to the urban centers. Most of our food baskets are in the rural areas. We are talking about food inflation. One of the things that most men and women do complain is cost of transport. So now that we are getting a relative stability with our city, and as a result affecting, petroleum prices, we are hoping that market women or, people moving goods or food from the rural areas to the urban areas will not charge us too much. And then at the end of it, when it comes to the market centers, we can also buy. I'm seeing a lot of foodstuffs around. Tomato is really around. Plantain, which used to be something that was very scarce, I'm seeing a lot of them around on the market, and that means that the food is really coming upstream, or they are even coming to the market. And when that, there is more supply to meet demand, clearly it will force the price to drop, and that is what we want to be seeing. But you can only achieve that when you have more of your infrastructure. And what is infrastructure that we need so much is our transport system and then our road networks to be able to improve and linking them to the farm gates, the market centers. These are things that, the budget has set the tone for our prosperity. So, Ellen.
Right.
I think that it's just that the finance minister said, it's a lot of hard work. It's something that, we started the whole recovery from a year or two ago, but now we are clearly seeing what is happening. Like I said, the minister just came to attack the figures and showed workings for whatever achievement that, he has recorded over the first half of the year. I followed his version and then, his first budget presentation and then the mid-year review. I can see that he has improved so much. And one of the things also that he has been doing is to be able to show financial discipline, and then being prudent. This is all that we've been advocating for, that you don't, blow your horn too much. You don't call the bluff of the figures. It's because sometimes it can favor you. Today, the figures can go bad for you, but within yourself, you just have to show humility and be more disciplined in management of the economy so that you can see where you can balance other areas to make sure that overall we are getting the relative stability that we are looking for. So,
right.
At the end of the day, it's all about how we eradicate poverty in the country. That just as the saying goes, most of economic development principles are looking out for some of these key areas. You look at the World Bank and IMF, it's about poverty reduction, poverty eradication, how we can grow our incomes in the country, have access to decent accommodation and then good jobs, have access to, good healthcare systems in the country so that when we are sick, we can be taken care of. We can have access to quality education, to educate ourselves properly in the country. This is what development principle or initiative is all about. And once we have seen our minister setting the tone for our economic recovery with these impressive figures that we have seen in areas of macroeconomics, the financial performance, revenue measures, and then even the revenue performance as well as the expenditure control. We believe that he's able to carry on with this trajectory. The ordinary Ghanaian will be the ultimate beneficiary.
He says he's not a policeman to arrest the city. Let me come back in studio and Julius, stick with us. I do have some more questions for you. Mr. Asante, I saw you nodding in agreement to certain things that, Fred had to say about the compliance, and instead of increasing the tax rates, making sure that we widen the nets. Also, Julius makes some good points about fiscal prudence. What is your assessment of how this government has handled its prudence so far? We've seen that fuel is no longer going to be given out willy-nilly. Also, for example, DSTV subscriptions, that is a thing of the past. I didn't even know that our public servants were at work watching DSTV. Anyway, that's all been scrapped, and we see a cut down in the government machinery by way of presidential staffers and so on and so forth. What is your assessment of that?
Yeah, thank you very much for your eagle eyes. I never you had an eagle eye.
What have I seen?
When you saw me nodding.
Yes. I saw you in agreement in quite a few instances, yes.
Actually, let me be very frank and concise that this is the first time I meet a lawyer, but then he's really impressed me. he made me learn something about tax law. I thought I knew until now. Yeah, what he was saying, our reality, what he said were our realities on the ground. They say, I don't think mere increment in taxes is a solution. I've always been advocating and saying that the reason why I don't support even this 1% increment in the oil, what do you call it? One CD
fuel levy.
Believe me, I don't support it.
You don't?
I don't. Ask me why.
Even if it were, what about if it were to be reduced, maybe 50 pesos?
Zero.
Even with the explanations preferred by government?
I'm never
legacy
convinced.
debts, fuel, no?
Ask yourself, how long has the legacy debt been? It's not something I knew. It was not started by the old administration. It has been with us as far back as 1992. Okay? From Rawlings era. When Rawlings was living, it was about 1.2 billion. Kufuor came, it increased. Just before this government came to power, it was 3.1 billion debt, which means it has been transcended from the least to the highest. We want to do away with it. We've tried several, it's not helping. Okay? What are the causes? We are not tackling the causative factor, but rather we're asking people to pay. I'm not a prophet of doom, but I'm afraid. Let us pay this 1 CD per liter. That gives about 4 CD 50 pesos per gallon. Very huge. Very huge. In a month, if we consume about 5 billion, very huge sum of money. Would that solve the problem? I'm not playing the devil's advocate, but I'm afraid we may come back to the same era. Why? Why? Because, my dear, we are not tackling the problem. What is creating the energy problem? One, we had a seminar with the then energy ministry. Luckily enough, I was part of that seminar in Akosombo. One cardinal area has to do with what we call the losses. The transmission from the IPPs, from Gridco through to ECG, before it is translated to us to, there's what we call the high tension transmission.
Yeah.
There is between 30 and 40% losses within the transmission sector after production. And they are transmitting before it got to ECG. About 30 to 40% are gone waste. At night, you could hear the sound on the high tension, on the high tension. Do you know what it means?
What does that mean?
Radiation. They are the wastages that are transcended, especially when you have high tension poles with mechanics, fitting shops under them. Okay, positive and negative notes. They attract and they go waste. This is how we are all looking there. Besides that, illegal connectivities.
Very big problem.
Extremely huge. I was really amazed when the minister went to Tamale and the hotel was caught in the web. A hotel of 20 bedroom. They are using 20 air conditioners and they were buying just 200 cedis worth of energy a month.
In fact, Mr. Santi, I'm quite intrigued that you mentioned Tamale. I can't remember what year it was, 22 or 23. We're told that we were losing about 80 million cedis in Tamale alone to power theft.
Yep. Just last month, the sector minister, John, he went there. And this was the reportage. And a hotel with 20 room accommodation, buying 200 cedis of energy. Luckily enough, they are using the prepaid. With the prepaid, you can do any under dealing. And this is what is happening. And you are telling me you are going to increase my energy cost. I should pay more. But the more I pay, the more they use. It's not going to pay. Look, let me sound a bit controversial. I'm going to dissociate this studio from it. Go to Accra Central, the Central Police Station. Okay? Almost every spouse of the officers there are into business, commercial business.
Let me further disassociate myself in 3FM 92.7.
I'm grateful for that. I take responsibility.
Certainly.
And this thing is happening live. Why? Because I don't know. Police officers, let's say security officers, have a way of government subsidizing their usage of electricity. They pay just a minimal. But that doesn't give you the operation for your spouses to be commercialized on it. Unless we don't want to face the reality. If you go to Accra Central, go to all the sectors, you see that the commercialization of the electricity there, and nobody's talking about it. Everybody seems to be afraid of it. Under Professor Mills, he tried to give meters to all ministries and organizations. Do you know why? Because he saw the wastages there were too much. You go to ministries on Friday night when they close. Go there on Saturday and Sunday, you see the air conditioners are on. Take it from me. They will be on from Friday night till Monday morning. Who is paying for? So these are the problems. If we don't tackle first the wastages in the system, illegal connectivities, and the unpaid bills, let them increase the taxes by whatever. Just as lawyer, that's what lawyer was telling you and I. It's not by increasing them, but it's using the prudent measures to resolve the problems. Otherwise, we shall be watching. Look, in 1972, when Rollins came at 1979, he said something. He said the Ghanaian economy is suffering because it's like we are fetching water into basket, and that is true. If I give you a basket to fill it, can you fill it?
It'll all seep out.
So how many rounds of water will it search? But until we see these things and see the potholes, I'm afraid. Just as Mr. has spoken, very, very beautiful language. Extremely, I was applauding yesterday that if these are the solution, then Ghana is getting to cloud 9. We are moving high. But then, I'm giving myself up to the end of the year. Stability of the currency. Look at the beautiful economic indicators. Blah, 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 blah. But what has been the effect, reflection of what we are hearing on the ordinary masses? If I'm having good inflationary rate, what is inflation? I think it's 14 or 13 point something percent.
13.7%.
Is it transcending on the life of the ordinary people on the ground? This is the critical point we and I have to ask. If we don't see this transition, then they will be just book copy. It must transcend on the people that you and I would really applaud. We need the people on the ground to tell us they are doing well, not you and I, who are bureaucrats probably, who understand. What he read, I'm sorry, before I land.
Certainly.
What he read, what percentage of the market women understand it? The macroeconomic indicators. Inflationary trend. What is inflation to the woman in the market who was buying charcoal for 30 cedis and now it's 300 cedis? To that woman, does she understand what you and I are talking about? That is where the danger is. But that doesn't negate the fact that there has been some achievements so far as this economic concept is concerned. So in the interim, let's stop it there.
Most certainly. Fred, let me come back to you and then we'll go back to Julius. Now, that's the word on the street. We're hearing such beautiful language. The macroeconomic indicators, they look good. We're told that the city is performing so well against other currencies. Some Ghanaians are asking how long until they feel that effect in their pockets. And because you're a tax lawyer, this 1 cedi on every litre of fuel, if I wanted to litigate, how do I go about that? Because I don't think I'm responsible for the inefficiencies in that space. So I know I've thrown out two questions to you. The first one about when we really feel these tangible results in our pocket, how long do we have to wait?
Okay, thank you. Sometimes some of the issues are psychological issues. Let me put it this way. For example, when the fuel prices were reduced, I mean, you pay less on how much you pay on transport. Then also, when you go to the mall, prices are reduced. You pay, I mean, lesser than what you used to pay. I've also heard not long ago that cement price have come down from about 120 cedis to about 120 cedis to about 100 Ghana cedis or so. That is tangible result. I mean, that is reflecting in our pocket. That means that your disposable income has gone a little bit higher. So it's about trying to, like the minister was doing yesterday, I mean, trying to quantify the effect in the individual's household's income and trying to indicate the trend in the price movement. So I think that, yes, prices are not coming down the way it's supposed to be, but there is certain level of one reduction in the economy. For example, when the minister said, I don't speak to you, but cedi are picky. So that tells you that, and this is not from the minister. I mean, we hear adverts, I mean, companies advertising that anytime the cedi comes down, they are also reducing their prices. And you and I will go to the market and buy. There are instances where the marketers also suggest, I mean, the buyer, the seller says, okay, I've purchased the product at old prices. So until this product is gone, before I can reduce my price. So in terms of that, yes, in these cases, you see the price as higher as it's supposed, I mean, it is. But that doesn't mean that, I mean, things are largely now, I mean, they're okay or everybody is fine. The rent we pay is still very high, you know. I mean, rent in Ghana is one of the highest in the world. If you compare the rent you pay in Ghana to that of Nigeria, to UK, you realize that hotel bills are always also very high. So it depends upon what item you're buying or what item you're dealing with and which side of the economy you find yourself. Then you will see that, okay, it is not reflecting in my pocket or it's reflecting in my pocket. Now, if you are a driver and you're driving and you buy fuel from a filling station, we used to buy fuel around 17 Ghana cedis, 15 Ghana cedis. Now it's around 40 Ghana cedis. That's some form of reduction in that case. You will expect more to come, except that may not reflect immediately as we expect. As the economy continues to stabilize and the government continues to sustain the stability as we expect, then in that case, then the price will come down. But we do not expect prices to come down, because you see, when price also comes down drastically, like it did in recent time, it also affects businesses. It affects economy. For instance, government has reported, I will delve into tax here, that import duty has dropped significantly. That is quite alarming, but it is expected, because once your dollar was around 17, 15 cedis, it is now 10 cedis per the Bank of Ghana's rate, then it means that your import will suffer. But the good news, the minister said, for which I think that much have to be done, is in respect of income tax and then maybe value added tax. But you see, the increment level in the terms of other tax handled are not as high as we expect. The reason is, it's not as high as we expect. Now, why is it so? It is so because not much effort is being put in place in respect of tax administration, tax compliance, in order to rake in the revenue.
Right.
And then I also keep saying that if you look at the budget, and the yardstick which I normally put is the last year 2024 revenue, actual revenue outturn that we have in the budget for 2024. It was around 100, the total tax revenue was around 190 billion. Now, if your inflation rate is around 21% at the beginning of the year, is now about 13%. Remember, VAT is paid on the price the product is sold. So if your product price is around 100 cedis and the VAT and the levy is 21%, that means that you're going to pay 21 Ghana cedis.
That's right.
So the expectation is that if your VAT hasn't gone up, which is reflective of the inflation rate, then you have a challenge, because VAT is based on the price which you buy our product. So if the VAT collection, income tax collection, does not go in the trend of inflation, then that creates a lot of problem, particularly where your import is also coming down. So it means that there is a lot of things that we have to do. Tax administration have to up the loopholes which we keep saying must be closed. Those who are supposed to pay the tax, step must be taken to pay the tax. Get them to pay the taxes.
Fred, thank you so much for that. Well, time check, it is some 23 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 a.m. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7, and time certainly flies when you're having fun. We have pretty much exhausted the time for this conversation, but to fully conduct an effective postmortem on this mid-year budget review, we'll have to segment this into parts. And Doc, I know you're still on the line. I did have a final question, but I know it's going to be a lengthy, meaty one. So you'll have to promise that you're coming back to see us next week so we can delve into the issues. These are complex, meaty, that you and I have to sink our teeth into. But thank you for that preamble. Next week, we'll talk again and get into the nitty-gritty. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Very grateful for your time. I would have loved to have gotten into the dollarization conversation because I think that also feeds into the psychology of the people. Something that Finance Minister said yesterday that stuck with me. He says, I believe in the city and so should you. When we have our next conversation, we'll be able to delve deeper. But I've had in the studio with me Mr. Henry Haruna Asante, leading member, Movement for Change. Mr. Asante, a pleasure meeting you this morning and gleaning your your thoughts on these issues. I wanted to ask what your background was, because at one point I thought maybe this is a lawyer. On every topic we've raised, you've had an expert opinion on that. I wanted to find out, businessman, lawyer, tax experts as well, or all-rounder?
Well, let me be very brief. Probably all rounder. I was a lawyer without a certificate.
Interesting. Noted. We'll delve more into that on the back end. But I also had Mr. Fred Kwashi, I would say, tax lawyer, as well with us. And thank you so much for your expert opinions on this one. Next time when we meet, we delve deeper. But there's more in store for you right here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
The best in the morning is on